All right, so what we're going to do today, we're going to do a quick recap just to see if persons have done the readings, have watched the video, and then we will work the problems. How many of you online did the problems that I would have posted? Just show your hand in the using the icon. There were 2 questions. Okay, Kishana, sorry. Nobody else? Okay, Nicholas. Okay. All right, just number 1. Thought you number 2 had looked difficult. All right. So just by way of recap, and remember, this is online, this is interactive, so I expect you to participate and not just sit down there and make the lesson boring. All right. So what is credit risk? Just show your hand and open your mic. Go ahead, Liz.
The chance that somebody will default or refuse to pay on their obligations.
Right. Okay, good. And those obligations would be what? Those obligations would be loans and one other thing, somebody else. You can put down your hand, Nicholas. One other thing that financial institutions invest in that pose credit risk to them. So we have loans.
Bonds.
Bonds, right. Okay, good. So we know about bonds and they pose a credit risk because the issuers of the bonds, they have to make payments on them. All right, now in terms of loans, there are several different types of loans. Just give me 4 different types.
Individual.
Individual, yes.
Real estate.
Real estate, yes.
Commercial.
Commercial, okay. So I think I got 3. What about when we talk about the rate on loans? So there are 2, when we talk about rates, there are 2 types of loans in relation to rates. Anybody can think of what they are? One is a fixed rate loan. What's the other one?
Floatable.
Floating rate loan. Right. Okay, good. So, and then there are different types of loans as well, because commercial paper is considered to be a loan commitment. Those are considered to be loans as well. All right. So we know that these loans and the other credit obligations pose risks to financial institutions. What are some of the tools that financial institutions use to help them, whether it be assess their credit risk or help them to work out the potential credit risks that they're exposed to?
What collateral do you want?
Collateral. Okay, so that's a collateral. Looking at the collateral forms part of something called what kind of a model? Anybody?
Repeat that.
Okay, so somebody said, I asked what are some of the things that some of the tools that financial institutions use to protect themselves against credit risk or to help them to determine how much credit risk they're facing. So someone said collateral. So yes, but collateral, that is, okay, let's leave it at collateral. Okay, what else do they use to help them with this whole management of their credit risk?
Credit scoring.
Credit scoring, yes. Anything else? So credit scoring and collateral, those all form part of what we refer to as borrower-specific factors, all right? And with the borrower-specific factors and you have borrower-specific and then you have market-specific factors, right? Those two together are utilizing a particular type of model. What model is it referred to as? What type of model those are used in?
The default risk model.
Okay, there's a default risk model, yes, but the category of models, it's an overarching name. So default risk model may be one of a type of model. They're called qualitative models, right? So those are qualitative models, and they're also quantitative models. Okay, so you have the qualitative ones, you have the quantitative ones, and they use these to measure credit risk. All right, so what are the market specific factors that are measured or used in the qualitative models? Anybody? All right, so we talk the two that I'm looking for, business cycle and interest rate levels. Now you have the quantitative models. Well, what are some of those? The quantitative credit scoring models. Anybody remember?
Credit scoring model.
Credit scoring model. So what are some of them?
The linear probability model.
Yes, linear probability model. Yes, good.
Model.
I didn't hear that one.
Logit.
Budget. Okay. All right. And okay, go ahead. Anything else? Discriminant analysis. Yes. Okay. Okay, good. So you have your qualitative, your quantitative, and some are better than others. And then they use a variety of methods. So good. I just wanted to do a little recap there. What we'll do is for next class, if you tomorrow, I should say, I shouldn't say next class like is next week, but tomorrow, if any, please write down any questions you may have in on the credit risk, because I know it has a lot of the quantitative type models, and you may have some questions. So go back over the Zoom session from last week that I posted last week and write down any questions you might have. All right, but what I want to go through today is I want to go back to the questions, the homework questions, because those homework questions I gave you are going to definitely your midterm next week, right? And then there's another one I wanted to show you So the ones that I test that I will look at today, there are others involved, and I didn't go through them in detail on the Zoom last time, but I want you to be able to identify them, and if not, be able to work out some of those models, actually do the calculations, at least understand them. But for sure, you're going to have to know how to work out the return on the loan, and also how banks calculate concentration limits, right? There are some other ones that we'll talk about, but for sure for next week, you know that the two we do today are going to be on the midterm. All right. Now, so a few people had raised, well, when I started talking, not that many people were on, but can I see a show of hands again on those persons who did the homework, at least attempted it, even if it's one question you did? Only Nicholas? Kishana? I thought I saw Kishana's hand before. Darwin, what about you? You didn't do the homework?
No, I didn't, miss.
You didn't? Okay. Anybody else? Jaheem? No? Okay. Who's Carol? Remember, I don't know the nickname. Somebody is showing up as Carol, and somebody is also showing up as, what is it? I don't know who that is. Okay, oh, Carolina. Okay, I didn't want to guess. All right. Okay, so most persons just did number one. Okay. So since most persons did number one, what was the answer for number one?
%8.48%.
8.48. Okay, maybe I made a mistake. It's 8, but I didn't get 8.48. Anybody else got anything else? Got a different answer?
8.5.
8.5, okay. All right, so maybe I rounded off too much or you rounded off too much. Okay, you can put your hands down so that if somebody has a question and they raise their hand, that I will know. All right, so what I'll do, because it's difficult for you all to write on the screen, I will share. All right. Just bear with me one moment while I make sure that the screen that I need to share is up. And then I can share that. All right, so let's see if I made any mistakes in what I was doing, because two people got call it 8.5 if you round off. All right, so let's see. And please feel free to raise your hand and say, Miss, you didn't do that calculation correct. All right, so let's go. You see a whiteboard in front of on the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. So in this example, they told you that the bank sets the loan rate on a prospective loan at 8%. And that 8% is made up of the 5% interest and then the risk premium of 3%. And they charge 0.1% as a loan origination fee. they impose a 5% compensating balance requirement, and they also hold reserve requirements of 10% imposed by the Federal Reserve, right? And so you need to find the return on the loan. And we know that the formula for return on the loan is 1 plus K. What's K? What's K formula? If you can just say it, because I'm writing on this, I'm not able to see the chat. What is K considered to be?
ROA.
The return on investment, okay. All right. Which is at least going to be their cost of capital. Everybody should have done FM by now. So what's your cost of capital? When we talk about cost of capital, what is it we mean? So I'm just putting down the variables that they gave us. The base rate is 5%. The risk premium is 3%. All right, and they charge 1/10 of 1%. And then they also, that's your loan origination fee. And then the other variable they gave us was the reserve requirement is 10%. So your reserve requirement is 10%, which means what they have available to them is actually 90%. And you'll see why I have 90% there. So if we were to fill in the numbers, what's K? K is what we're looking for, right? So your origination fee is how much in decimals? What's your origination fee in decimals?
0.001.
0.001, right? Plus your base rate is 5%, so that's 0.05. And the your risk premium is 3% or 0.03. All right. This is 1 minus your compensating balance. I didn't fill that in. Let me just put it over here, compensating balance. Is 5%, yeah? All right, so filling in all of the numbers. So that's 0.05, and that's 1 minus 0.9. All right. So 1 plus K is equal to 1 plus, the top part works out to be what? I have it worked out, but tell me.
Excuse me, ma'am. Is it
Uh-huh.
1 minus 0.9 or is it 1 minus 0.1?
1 minus 0.9, because the requirement to be held is 10%, right? So they're required to hold 10%. So what is available to them is 90%. So that's why you subtract 0.9 as opposed to 10%.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. You with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, so the top is going, it works out to be what, 0.081? That's correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. And then the bottom, that works out to be, let me just make sure I did the correct thing here. So that's 1 minus 0.005. So K is equal to 1.0814 minus 1. So K is equal to 8.14%. With me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, any questions there? All right. So, and then the next question is number 2. Most people didn't do number 2. Anybody at all did number 2?
I attempted it, but I'm not sure if what I did was right.
Okay, so what you got for the first one?
10%.
Huh? 10?
Yes, ma'am.
10%? All right, let's see. That's not what I got, but let's work it through and see. All right, let me just get another board, another page. All right, so in this question, it said County Bank offers 1-year loans with a stated rate of 9%, requires a compensating balance of 10%. What is the true cost of the loan to the borrower? So that's the first question. And then it asks, how does the cost change if the compensating balance is 15%? And then they ask you if the compensating balance is 20%. And you're to assume that the originating fee and reserve requirements are 0. All right? So we're going to use the same formula that we used before. Okay? Because think about it. The cost to the borrower, all right, is essentially the same as the return on the loan, all right, to the bank. So we use the same formula. And if we were to fill in the numbers, let me just put back up the formula. So that's your originating fee. That's your base rate. That's your risk premium. So what did they tell us? They told us that the rate is 9%. So what we're going to assume is that this right here, this whole thing, let me change the color, that this whole part of your equation is 9%, right? They told you that in each case, you assume the originating fee and the reserve requirement is 0, right? So what you have is your base rate, or your interest rate. Let's call it the interest rate and not your base rate. So the rate is 9%, and your compensating balance is 10%. All right. So when we're plugging in, what are we doing here? So your origination fee is 0, right? Yeah. And the rate, so this whole thing right here is 9%. So that's 0.09. And then we know that there is no required rate of it. There's no reserve requirement. And we know that there is a compensating balance, yes? Uh-huh.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, thank you. At least somebody answered me this time. So what's going to be in the numerator here? It's going to be 1 minus your compensating balance, okay, which is 0.10. That makes sense? So 1 plus
Yes.
k is equal to 1 plus 0.09. Okay, 1 minus 0.10 is what? It's 0.9, okay? And 1.09 divided by, sorry. So 0.09 divided by 0.9 gives you what? One moment, I did something wrong. 0.9, okay. All right. So K is equal to 1 plus 0.10 minus 1. So K is equal to 0.1 or 10%. Yeah? So Kishano,
Yes, ma'am.
you see you're correct.
Okay.
All right. All right. So any questions on that one? So we'll do the other one. So I'm gonna just make a little space there. So the second part says, how does the cost change if the compensating balance is 15%? What you got for that one, Kishana?
0.59%.
Point
59%.
0.59. Okay, let's work that and see. All right, 1 plus K is equal to, we already know that the originating fee is 0, all right? And we know that the rate is 0.09. And then if it changes to 15%, if the compensating balance is 15%, right? So 1 plus K is equal to 0.09, sorry. 1 minus 0.15 is 0.85. I got 0.1059. That looks right?
Yes.
Sorry, I just made a mistake. 1.1059. Yeah? So K is equal to 1.1059 minus 1. So K is equal to what? 10.59. Let me not skip the step. So K is equal to 0.1059 or 10.6%. That makes sense? Krishana? Yeah, that makes sense to you?
Yes, mom. I didn't round it up. That's what I
Yeah,
did.
okay. All right, okay. So any questions? Let's erase that line. I'm sorry, I'm trying to make space on the one sheet so that when you look at it again. All right, so in this case, the compensating balance is 10%, right? So the compensating balance equals 10% in this one. And this one, your compensating balance is 15. Okay, so if we just plug everything in, 0.09 over 1 minus, did I just write 20%? That should be, I wrote 10% here, that should be 20. The compensating balance is 20%, right? So it's 1 minus 0.20. So your 1 plus K is equal to 1 plus 0. So 1 minus 0.2 is going to give you 0.8. So 0.09 divided by 0.8. I think I just did something wrong. 0.09 divided by 0.8 equals 0.1125. So 1 plus K is equal to 1.01125. And K is equal to 0.01125 minus 1. So K is equal to, hold on. You're not even telling me that I made a mistake. Help me out here now, Carolina, where are you? All right. Any questions on that one, on those? Everybody comfortable with those?
So what type of model is this, may I ask? What's the name of this model?
So what we were doing there is calculating the return on. So for this question, let me just put this question number 2. On this question, the question asks, what is the true cost of the loan to the borrower? The cost of the loan to the borrower is really the same thing as the return on the loan to the bank, right? So the first question we did was the return on the, we did the return on the loan, right? So let's go back to the return on the loan. Second. All right. So that first question we did there, we were working out the return on the loan. So what banks do, they try to price a loan, right? And in pricing the loan, they want to ensure that in pricing the loan, they cover their cost, all right? And so in order to cover their costs, they have to consider all of the fees. First, they consider their cost of capital, what it costs them, what it's going to cost them, all right, to do all of their activities. So they want to make sure that their cost of capital is going to be less than the return on their loan. So they're going to price the loan such that they're going to include additional fees and charges to ensure that they can get a positive return on the loan. So they will charge an origination fee, which is pointed out here as OF. And then they have the base rate. Then they have the risk premium. So they would probably have used their qualitative model, all right, to see what is the risk of this person to them, or what are the chances that this person may not pay back the loan. And in doing that, they calculate, they add a premium onto the base rate, right? And so that is M, or you may see it written as this symbol right here, okay? And so they consider the origination fee, that's part of what they're going to get from the customer. They're going to get the base rate, they're going to get the risk premium, and then they have to also get in balance, and you'll see this numerator here is really, they are factoring in the compensating balance, which is a positive to them, and the reserve requirements, right? What money is available to them is the 90% that has not been given to the bank, to the central bank as a reserve requirement, right? And so this is the return on the loan. The formula, what we worked out is the return on the loan. the return on the loan is essentially the cost to, the return on the loan is the cost to the cost to the customer, right? Let's go back here and look at where we did this here. So what is the real cost to the customer? The real cost to the customer is going to be the interest rate that they pay, all right? That is the real cost to the borrower and the compensating balance. So if you told me, all right, that the cost to the borrower is really just this part here, okay? Or the rate. Yes, that the cost to the borrower is 9%, right? Because that's the interest the borrower is paying. Sure. But the borrower has to put in a compensating balance, all right? Which is 10% of the loan. So the true cost to the borrower is not just the 9%, but also the amount of the loan that they give up by having to put in that compensating balance. All right. So if the reserve requirement was factored in, the true cost to the borrower would not have included the reserve requirement. Okay. If there was an origination fee, that would be a cost to the borrower. So in the previous example, where there was an origination fee, then you would consider the origination fee as part of the cost to the borrower as well. All right? Does that clear it up, or did I confuse you some more, Darwin?
Yes.
Yes to what? It cleared it up, or I confused you?
No, it cleared it up.
It cleared it up. Okay, good. Right. So the other, very good. So that is one of the critical parts of a bank trying to manage its credit risk, by ensuring that it prices the loan, that it exceeds its cost of capital, right? That it has done the research necessary to ensure that it is covering its risk and well, covering its risk and making some extra money. Okay, so that's just one part of it. But the commercial banks, or sorry, the financial institution, because they're not just commercial banks alone that give loans, the financial institution has to ensure that it measures the risk to itself when it is issuing loans. And so it uses various credit scoring models. So it has the qualitative ones, and then it has the quantitative ones, where it looks at the probability that the borrower is going to default or not going to default. And so it uses things like the linear probability models, where they use a z-score, and that z-score is dependent on a number of things. So with the Altman linear discriminant model, that model they use mostly for businesses. And let me take down this screen and just show you give you an example of the Altman discriminant model. So with the Altman discriminant model, they calculate a z-score, right? And they have various variables that they include. And what are the variables? Working capital over total assets. So they get the institution's financials and they get these ratios and they total them up. They multiply them by a factor. That is the percentage or the probability. I shouldn't call it the probability. But yes, the linear Altman discriminant model is a linear probability model that calculates a score, and it's a sum of all of the different factors, all right, that come together to show the chance that the borrower may default. So that's one of them, the Altman's linear discriminant model, where they work out within the different factors. So working capital makes up 1.2. Retained earnings and total assets makes up 1.4. Earnings before interest and taxes is 3.3. So they assign these weightings and then they multiply them by the ratios to get a score as to how they think the organization or the business that they're lending to is going to perform within their loan. So they look at their financials, so their working capital to total assets. That is how much money they have to work with, or their operating cash flows basically is their working capital divided by the total assets. Then their retained earnings to total assets and the earnings before interest and taxes. So that is how they determine the credit risk of using, right? And then that model problems. It considers, and the weightings they use are not always stationary. Can you hear me still? The weightings change over time. Are y'all hearing me?
Yes, you can.
Oh, okay. Now I'm hearing some pings in the line. One moment. My hold for me. My computer is dying. Didn't expect it to die that quickly. So I'm sorry, I forgot to put back in my headphones. Right. So what you're seeing up on the screen, you have that in your slides, but these are some slides that I made for the other group, the 2005 students, which pulls out just the critical parts of the yes, you need to know the formulas, but not for the linear discriminant model. Sorry, I wasn't seeing that. Okay, I'm not sure why my computer is pinging, but okay. Right, so these are some slides that I did for the other class, which pulls out some of the critical aspects, which I just try to make it a little easier for them so that they know precisely what they have to calculate. Now, tomorrow we will go back over, we'll have a closer look at some of the other models that they use, but that's, we'll have a look at them. You need to know what they are, you need to understand them. But like I said, for next week, you just need to know how to calculate this. And tomorrow I'm going to show you the concentration limit. It is in your notes, but I didn't actually go through it. All right. So I think that's it. It's 3:59. Any questions? Any final questions? Anybody has any questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay, if no questions, what I'll do, I will attempt to share the recording on this. I won't promise you that you'll get it today. Maybe tomorrow you'll get it because I have another tutorial right after this, and then I have a class at 5:30. So I may not get to post it this evening, but I'll post it. All right. So bye, everybody.
Bye.
Okay, bye.